On the news this afternoon, NLC issues ultimatum to federal government to meet demands. More reactions trail viral video of cult group accused of killing Aoda DPO SP Angbashim. Police to recover unlicensed firearms from politicians. Nosdra urged to make public investigation findings on Aleto oil spill. NNPC Limited dismisses management staff. On the foreign scene, India expels senior Canadian diplomats following Prime Minister Trudeau's comment on murder of separatist leader. I am Constance Mega with the news. The Nigeria Labour Congress NLC says the federal government has till Friday to meet its demands or risk another round of industrial strike. But this comes as the government pleaded for more time to address the grievances of the labour movement, while the NLC president Joe Ajero spoke to newsmen after the meeting.
So on that note, the minister appealed to the Nigerian Labour Congress asking for more time for federal government to come out with a position that will be mutually agreeable. But we insisted that the federal government has enough time. And we went back, I joined the meeting hoping that he will consult his principals for us to equally resolve this matter. Before the end of the next 3-4 days, will be for the expiration of the ultimatum. So that was the meeting we had. Quite friendly.
Well, on the refusal of the TUC to join the NLC during the warning strike held weeks ago, the NLC president said the TUC cannot pull out of a strike it did not call. Mr. Ajero also spoke about the separate meeting of the Trade Union Congress with the federal government.
So the NLC is independent. The TUC is independent. If they like, they come together on an issue that is mutually affecting all of them. But on this issue, if the TUC say that is the subsidy removal, does not affect their members, and the NLC say it affects their members, you see that each one will pursue it in their own way. TUC may have a way they are pursuing theirs, and the NLC has a way they are pursuing theirs. What is important is for us to achieve, the aim for which the trade union organization is set up.
Well, the meeting is expected to continue at a later date, and the meeting between the federal government and the NLC to avert a looming strike ended yesterday without a concrete resolution. The Minister of Labour and Employment, Simon Lalong, and Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Nkiruka Onyejiocha, were at the meeting. A security analyst, Charles Nkotaria, says the recent online video featuring wanted gang members and their leader responsible for the killing of Aoda DPO SP Angbashim shows a lack of remorse for their criminal actions. Mr. Nkotaria, in an interview with correspondent Emekotuka, urged security operatives to be strategic in seeking to arrest the suspects to prevent further casualties.
Obviously, there's no remorse in them. And more so, most of these people are under different codes, shams, and drugs. So I don't think they will ever look back, So there is need for the police to come up with a more robust intelligence, network and more surveillance. Obviously, these boys don't sleep with the arms. They have their armories. They have their movement and so on. The police can take advantage on most of these things if they have a proper intelligence and more community relationship. Very important.
Mr. Nkotaria also linked the increasing insecurity in the state to the aftermath of the 2023 general elections. He said desperate politicians armed many youths during the election with the sole aim of securing victories without adequately considering the societal consequences that would arise.
These boys were highly equipped by their political godfathers, or what you call them. They were used during the election and within the electoral process time. Now that the election is over, they resort back to their own traits and use the arms within their possession to carry out unnecessary actions and activities that is inimical to the society. The present CP is just reacting. It should be able to create avenues to create a non-kinetic security approach in Rivers State. Otherwise, you can't beat them.
Recall that on Saturday, another video of the gang responsible for the killing of the late SP Bako Angbashim surfaced In the video, members of the gang were seen pledging allegiance to their leader, David Okwara, also known as Tubaba. It comes 1 week after the police declared the leader of the gang wanted. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Police Force has started moves to recover unlicensed firearms from politicians and very important persons, VIPs, across the country. It followed the directive of the Acting Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, who ordered the various state police commands to recover arms in the hands of uncertified bearers. The acting IGP had last week set up an ad hoc committee tasked with a comprehensive review of firearms licensing and regulations by the Nigeria Police Force in line with the Firearms Act and other extant laws. The Police High Command revealed that the committee would carry out a thorough assessment of current firearms licensing procedures and regulations to enhance their effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. But a security expert, Timothy Avele, argues that mopping up arms with the rising insecurity in the country would achieve little or no results. He advised the police to engage in intelligence-led policing to contain pockets of insecurity across the country. Moving on now, 3 months after an oil spill in Aleto, Elemeloku government area of Rivers State, an environmentalist, Anda Y. Ogosu, says a post-impact assessment study is ongoing. Professor Y. Ogosu tells correspondent Soibi Oruwari that the study is to determine the level of damage to the people and the environment.
We are now discussing the technical issues involved in determining the real impact of that spill. That's the stage we are now, which is what we scientifically will call post-impact, because something happened some time ago and the trajectory will go depending on the tide. When you now want to carry out a study, it becomes post-impact study. So that's where we are now. And we have asked them, tell us the scope that you want to cover, study, because that's scientific. Tell us this. So when we will agree that, okay, this scope of assessment is adequate.
But Professor Y. Ogosu urged leaders of other communities affected by oil spill to adopt the Aleto method for getting facility owners to accept responsibility whenever a spill occurs.
It took a lot of time because the community knew their rights and therefore insisted that the right thing was. The communities refused to be bought over. Some attempts were made to get some of the communities not to show interest in what the king of Eleme put on ground. When they found out that the resistance was much, the facility owner relaxed. We want other communities to learn from, if you would like to call it, the resilience or the knowledge of their little issue, so that they can start changing the modus operandi of the IOCs that always believes in divide and rule.
Well, the environmentalist also asked the National Oil Spill and Detection and Response Agency, NOSDRA, to make public their findings from their joint investigative venture, JIV team, on Aleto.
They will say it's human interference, sabotage, blah, blah, blah. But this one, they just couldn't hold on to that. They were convinced that they were responsible. So the JIV report is out, but I don't know if it is in the public domain. But I know it is out with NOSDRA, River State Ministry of Environment. It is also in the purview of the authority and the commission. The JIV is in their possession. What is left is for NOSDRA to ensure that the explanation that was given in that JIV is followed through and corrected.
Well, our correspondent reports that community leaders and owners of a facility where an oil spill occurred in Eteo community in Elemeloku government area are expected to visit the scene of the spill again. Away from that, the chairman of Nigeria Agro Input Dealers Association, River State Chapter, Godwin Akando, says premature harvesting of cassava by farmers can lead to starvation. Mr. Akando said this in an interview with correspondent Onyeka Chinwosu while reacting to the reports that some farmers in Abu-Odua local government area have started harvesting their cassava prematurely to avoid it being washed away by floods.
You harvest them prematurely, there's nowhere to store them. It will lead to hunger, and the ones unuprooted within that period will rotting on the soil. To uproot prematurely will not give you the quantity that you're supposed to harvest in a particular plot of land. You know, a farmer supposed not to uproot all what he has in one day. Farmer uproots on instrumental basis, based on how you plant, and then as you are selling, you're also feeding your family. But this one, you are forced by natural disaster, whether you like it or not.
On the palliatives provided by the federal government to farmers, Mr. Akando said the palliatives only make an impact if they are distributed through farmers' associations.
If they are to distribute such input, it is for farmers, not for political farmers who doesn't know its usage. If you are distributing it through politicians, politicians will equally share it through politicians. They have their ward list, in short. The chairman will call for the councillors in their respective wards, not the list of farmers. They should have distributed this thing through commodity associations. Why the government will be at the supervisory side of it?
Well, as you may know, as part of its palliatives and efforts at reducing the effects of food shortages across the country caused by the removal of petrol subsidy, the federal government said it procured 100,000 bags of rice, 40,000 bags of maize and fertilizers to be distributed to farmers across the country. In other news, the Chief Judge of Rivers State, Justice Simeon Chibuzo Amadi, has charged newly appointed magistrates to ensure that they are committed to delivering justice. Justice Chibuzo Amadi gave the charge at the opening of a 2-day workshop for the new magistrates of the Rivers State Judiciary at the Justice Mary Odili Judicial Institute. He said the roles of magistrates are important in safeguarding the rights of citizens.
As we delve into topics ranging from evidence-based decision-making and ethical considerations to procedural reforms and the intersection of technology with the legal process, let us remember that our commitment to justice is unwavering. The principles of impartiality and respect for the law form the bedrock upon which our judicial system stands, and it is our responsibility to carry these principles forward in our daily endeavors.
Earlier, the Administrator of Justice Mary Odili Judicial Institute, Justice Anwari Ken Chikere, in her opening remark, stressed the need for magistrates to be updated on the rules of practice.
Ensure that there is a quick dispensation of justice, because when justice is quickly delivered, public confidence will grow and the path of justice is assured. In order to achieve this lofty goal, newly appointed magistrates must firstly, as a matter of law, be given updated laws and rules of practice. This no doubt can easily empower them to be abreast with the laws and quickly dispense justice to all.
Our correspondent reports that the theme of the workshop is navigating the path of justice. Still to come, NNPC Limited dismisses management staff. Stay tuned.
The Department of Private and Property Law, Rivers State University.
Staying with us, President Bola Tinubu has called on South Africans to invest in Nigeria's solid minerals development sector. President Tinubu said this when he met with the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in New York. Well, the special advisor to the President of Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, said this in a statement yesterday. He said President Tinubu is also expected to meet with other presidents at the UN General Assembly, which continues until 26th September. Well, President Tinubu is also scheduled to deliver his message to the United Nations General Assembly at 6 p.m. today. A federal high court in Abuja has dismissed the suit filed by Senator Adamu Bulkachua seeking to stop the ICPC from investigating him over the comments he made during the valedictory session of the 9th National Assembly. But Justice Inyang Ekwo, in a judgment, held that the suit lacked merit and ought to be dismissed. But Justice Ekwo said that Bulkachua, being a lawmaker, ought to understand the implication of the statements that he made on the floor of the Senate. In business news, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, NNPCL, has announced some organizational changes. In a statement signed by its management, NNPC Limited said members of staff with less than 15 months to statutory retirement will be leaving the company effective 19th September 2023. It said the decision is aimed at achieving effective organizational renewal to support the delivery of strategic business objectives. And in entertainment, the management of late Nigerian musician Mohbad has announced a candlelight procession and tribute night for the late artist. Meanwhile, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has invited the DSS to join the probe into the death of the singer. In sports, striking Spanish internationals called up to the women's team have reiterated their desire not to form part of the squad. New coach Montse Tome called up 15 of the Women's World Cup winners earlier on Monday for Nations League matches, most of whom had said they did not want to play for their country until wider changes had been made at the federation.
And now, we'll bring you news from around the world.
India has expelled a senior Canadian diplomat after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau suggested that India may have been involved in the killing of a Sikh separatist leader. Canada's foreign minister announced the expulsion. Prime Minister Trudeau said Canadian intelligence was pursuing credible allegations of a link between his death and the Indian state. But India has firmly rejected Trudeau's allegations, calling them absurd and politically motivated. Well, that's the news this afternoon. On the news this afternoon, you heard that the NLC has given the federal government until Friday to meet its demands or face another industrial strike. More reactions are trailing the viral video of a cult group and their leader accused of killing the Aoda DPO, SP Bako Ambashim. The police are to recover unlicensed firearms from politicians and VIPs. Nostra has been urged to make public its findings on the Aleto oil spill. NNPC Limited has dismissed some of its management staff. And on the foreign scene, India has expelled a senior Canadian diplomat following Prime Minister Trudeau's comments on the killing of a separatist leader. The news was edited by Onyeka Chinwosu. Mostly cloudy weather in Port Harcourt this afternoon. Now, to reach the news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0808 721 7215. Peace is the path to the prosperity of a nation. Let peace reign. I'm Constance Mega. Thank you so much for listening. Good afternoon.